that's what we always do with theater. That is that we take our own, problems and traumas and pain and joys and so forth, and we then channel them through other characters.
Very excited to be speaking with Búi Dam, the director of BIRITA. Am I saying correctly? BIRITA.
BIRITA, yeah, that's very close. Yeah, BIRITA, yeah. BIRITA.
BIRITA, which is just a beautiful piece about your mother getting on stage for the first time in 12 or
12
13 years, I
years.
think,
Yeah,
which
12 years.
is just remarkable. What inspired this you or this in how do I say this well? What inspired this film in your mind? But not only that, but also to bring her back after she had retired on stage.
Yes, that's a good question. I think the main thing was my mother herself. She had been an actress for almost 40 years when she had to stop because she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I was assistant directing the last play that she did, and that was a very painful experience for her because she was forgetting directions and lines as they were rehearsing. So after that, but she did perform the play, but after that, she said, "Stop! I'm not going to perform anymore." And then she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Then the years go by, and of course, with Alzheimer's, the memory fades and fades and fades. But during that time, I am working in the theater, and also my father. And every time we're talking about a performance we're doing, or a production, or something, she would ask, "Is there a part for me?" So she still
Hmm.
had this longing to go on stage, even though she knew that she couldn't go on stage again the way that she used to go on stage. So at one point, we started talking that we should create a performance um, on her terms. Uh, and that's what we did. It took us a while to get there. But after, yeah, 10, 11 years of her disease, when her memory was really almost all gone, we finally said, okay, if we're going to do this, we have to do it now. And that's what we did. We pushed it through. We didn't have the money in the beginning, but we did it anyway because it was a race with time. And then we did this production of Lear with her in the lead role. And yeah.
Well, I love that you just said that there about her expressing an interest in a part because I know this film really wrestles with that, the
Mhm.
idea, the ethical implications of bringing her on stage and whether, because, there is the conversation, well, she retired on her terms, but yet
Mhm.
there seems to be a light within her at the
Yeah.
opportunity to get back on stage. So, what was that process like for you to wrestle through that? Because, I mean, these are major, major questions.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean the question of consent was the biggest question throughout the process. Absolutely. Uh, Me and my father, we who are very close to her, we were quite certain that it was the right thing to do with her. But of course, as we allowed other people into the room, they would have questions, and sort of the ethics would change because they saw a person that we would say every day, "So we're doing a play today," and she would ask, "So what play is it?" "Oh, it's King Lear, and you're the main character." "Oh, that's wonderful." And the second day after, again, same thing. "We're doing a play," because you would forget it all the time, of course. So people who see that, they might be provoked and think, she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know what's going on, even. And that is true to an extent. But there's another underlying thing, which was the thing that me and my father were guided by, which was her engagement and her joy in being in the theater and being surrounded by theater people, actors, music, set designers, and so forth. That happiness and that joy that she had had throughout her life, that came back when she stepped into this room. And that was kind of our guiding light in this process, you know. And then we had one really important rule, which was that if she at any point said, when we're saying, so we're doing a play today, we're doing King Lear, if she at any point says, no, I'm not doing this, then we'll stop. Then the production stops. So she was giving consent all the time, but she was also forgetting it all the time. So it's a very complicated question, which we of course were debating throughout the process.
You know, that's such a delicate line to walk.
Yeah.
My members of my own family have had or do have dementia or Alzheimer's, and I mean that tension. I'm glad to hear you had this sort of way of, you know, she said no, we said no, because there is that level of confusion here, and
Yeah.
but it's such a beautiful thing to see play out on screen. And the same, like the way sort of her eyes light up. It's just
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Uh, why Lear? You know, I understand that the character towards the end is suffering from dementia.
Mm.
But was that the primary reason, or why specifically this major piece?
Yeah, I think there are three major reasons. One of them is that it is definitely for me the best play that's ever been written, and I've always wanted to do this play. And getting the opportunity to do it with my mother was an incredible opportunity for me. I've never worked with my mother as a director because I started directing at the same time as she left the stage. So this is the first time we've worked together as a director and actress. So that was one reason. And then one reason was, as you said, it is a play that grapples with the same issues that we had been going through as a family. And that is sort of a cathartic process that we went through with theater, and that's what we always do with theater. That is that we take our own, you know, problems and traumas and pain and joys and so forth, and we then channel them through other characters and are able to somehow release them or you know give them space. And that's what I wanted to do with this play as well. And Lear is written in a way that is so complicated emotionally and spiritually, and sort of that is the same way I find that the process of your mother getting a disease which makes her forget you as her son is also an incredibly, yeah, complicated process. So I think that was the second, yeah, was the cathartic possibilities in Lear. And the third one reason was simply that I didn't want to overprotect my mother. I didn't want to do anything sweet with my mother. I wanted the play to be massive and violent and, you know, blood and death and sex and everything that she had been part of in theater throughout her life. And she, you know, she's a very, very strong person. She's always been, and she could take anything. And I wanted to give her that, basically, to be surrounded by all the drama that theater, you know, is and has been for her throughout her life. So I think that was, yeah, those are the three main reasons we chose this play.
Well, you know, you mentioned about dealing with trauma in real life, and this film isn't just about her on stage. You're balancing it with her being or your father and their relationship change there. Was that more difficult to show on screen, or was that cathartic as well, as showing this relationship changing as she becomes unable for him to care for her anymore?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that was more difficult, yeah. I think that was more difficult both to shoot and to share, definitely, because that's so naked and so vulnerable, you know, my father having to go through what he is going through. Um, but I think also for us as a family going through this, for him to see himself and see his own um, pain somehow also has a cathartic quality to it. That's my impression. And I mean, our conversation about these things has become much more open and light after making this film, definitely. And that's what my mother was very good at. My father was never very good at talking, but my mother was also was very good at that. So I think the film somehow helps him also to yeah, put put it into words.
You know, it's interesting because at one point in the film, a question is asked, and I think it's you that answer it, or you that ask it. Where it says, "Am I the movie?" Um,
Sorry, am I the movie?
"Am I the movie?" is asked at one point. I think you're with your mother, uh,
Forgot
and
what.
I'm trying to think, and your child,
Oh yeah, no,
and
yeah, now
yes,
I remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's my son. Yeah, when my
your
son is,
son.
yeah, 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 yeah. He's playing, and I say, "Am I the movie?" Yeah, yes,
Yes, that's what it was. And I thought that was interesting because I mean, in some ways, you are. I mean, it's about your mother. This film is named
yeah,
after your mother, but in some ways, it's this journey that you're on.
yeah.
And I wondered for you as a filmmaker, you know, a lot of documentaries, the person behind the camera stays behind the camera, but you put yourself in front of it.
Yeah.
Uh, was that a challenge for you, and did that affect the way that you interact with the story?
No, I mean, it was a challenge just in terms of being, the director and being in front of the camera. But I think it was very helpful, both for me for the story itself, but also to generate the story, to create the stories. I'm working on another documentary right now, and I find that I tend to jump in to generate conversations or things around. So in that sense, I think it's a very helpful tool if it makes sense in the story, of course. Yeah, depends on who you're making a film about, of course. But right there, it was very helpful. It was just difficult because, I didn't know what was going on. But thank God, I had one of the greatest cinematographers, which is Franklin Senfer Henriksen, which he has a fantastic intuition as a photographer, and so he has created so many of those shots himself from pure intuition and of he knows storytelling.
Hmm.
Mm.
Well, with that being said, it appears that one of the sort of mantras in the film, and I know there's a sign in your father's home, don't take life too seriously. No one gets out alive anyways.
Exactly.
And I would love to know your thoughts on a statement like that because I know it comes up a couple of times and you show it on the wall.
Mm.
But that is a fascinating line to sort of be a through line for this particular film.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that is, and as you see in the film, that is a sign that my mother bought right after she got the diagnosis. Uh, my father and her, they were in Denmark, and she got the diagnosis, and he said he was so surprised at how strong she was. And they went out to eat and had a beer or something, and then they passed this shop where she saw the sign, and she bought that sign and she hung it when they come home on top of the kitchen. And for me, that is basically, I think that's the message my mother gave me, to move onwards with this is, don't take life too seriously. Nobody gets out of it alive. Because as you, I think also comes through in the film, she's a joyous, fun-loving, naughty person, and she has kept that throughout. We have had so many laughs, with her throughout this, all these years. So I think I think that's what I will be taking away with me from this process with my mother is exactly that.
I love that. It's such a beautiful and simple piece, but it also gives such life to even this performance.
Yeah.
The way this is brought together. Honestly, Buef, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Birita
Búi
Birita is a beautiful, beautiful film,
Thank you
and
so much.
I appreciate you sharing it with us. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you very, very much.